Hello and welcome. Today's date, that comes in that of a Tuesday. It's the 7th of January 2019. My name is Derek, and this is the Money Charts channel. Like we're always. All bets trades and of the like, well, that's within each's own risk and their own reward. I'm going to focus on the Canadian dollar for these charts and look at that of silver, gold, and Bitcoin. Therefore, we'll look at the daily chart with a lot of periods going back to 2015, the middle of 2015 to current. And we can see really sideways, choppy-ish, with a bit of trends as key highs and key lows. Well, one way of looking at it is we got this key low, this key high. Along the way on there where there was this key low and this key high, this key low, this one, and then this one, lower to this, higher low, and well, that was it. And then back into here where we resisted this as an area of support before, had a breakdown, resisted it again, but a higher low, and there's a cup and handle sort of it is a cup and handle formation, which of course has presented a big breakout to the upper end area, lower part of it, but back to the upper end area, which would be really this general point of resistance that it entangled in the 2016 up to 2017 area. Therefore, in such, within this range, and we'll see it more clearly as we move within other time frames, and until it gets out of the sideways mode, it's in the sideways mode, and it's closer to the top end, but it's got a decent ways to go just to get to this key 27 high that it reached amongst that level. And then as far as key levels, they're so easy to notice. I talk about key highs and key lows. There's a key low, there's a key high, and it looks like we got the last one here, known after the fact. In fact, it will be. Whatever this high happens to be will be the next one. Now that's had really what I think is a minimum run from above the 18 average of highs to sustain whatever this high to be, such that highs and lows known after the fact. So now I know this is the low. I don't know if this is a high, probably not actually. It's probably favored actually to be somewhat higher. But along the way, we have these lower lows and lower highs. This was lower high here, but retested. And then after this lower low, this high was lower to this. And then technically, it's lower low. It's almost a matching one. But then, of course, this has changed the trend. So primary down, staying in the 18 average of highs mostly and below it. Now, well, staying in the 18 average of highs and above it. But no, it's only above it right now. As ever since it broke out above it on December the 20th, we can see here that support has been such along the way. And even looking at yesterday's session, how we had this pullback. And the same for US chart or the yen or whatever, any currency, it had the same thing. You have a move like that pulls back. Well, that's just magnificent stuff. I'm going to draw a trend line here. Actually, that's a bad one. So I'm going to delete that. I'm just going to try to... give me where did my thing go to delete it? Hang on a second. And I should just paused it. I have like a delete button to delete what I put in last. It's just not working, and can't even find that button now. So I had to push Control Z. What I want to do is I want to draw a line just to match up with the 18 highs. That's accurate enough. And the whole purpose of this is because I'll be reducing the time frame to shorter increments. But as it stands along the way, when the price action on December the 26th had this finish of the gain from the December 19th low, so the key high known after the fact with this being the key low, well, that was a move up to this previous level of resistance in here. And yesterday we can see that it broke above it, which was an attempt. Now what it did is it went from a noticeable pierce lower to barely a pierce above, but the attempt is to get to the next point, which would be this level of resistance up to the one in here. So the range between 24 and 3/4 up to about 26. And again, it gave it back, but since then, this is a very bullish situation. You have the good move, the nice sideways consolidation, finding great support here. There's that breakout phase. It looks like it was a failed breakout, but to just come back to where you came from and then rally like this, that to me looks like a tremendous pattern. Switching over to the triple hour time frame. What we see in here is on Christmas, it comes up to this level of resistance, this is where the resistance happens to come in at. Has to be somewhere, that's where it was, 23 2/3. Then this area corrects successfully within the 18. That's an interesting sideways consolidation here. Failed breakout attempt as it managed to get above, but it didn't support in the band at all where it came from. But all it did was do one move lower, never failing, and that's where the support ended up being for a key low. Then in here, the statement to break out higher, and there's that spot where it breaks out, comes back. And then obviously being successful, comes back to this for a second retest of this level, successfully correcting within the 18, and then go up to this point in here. So therefore, with everything that has been in play, it's looking to me very productive. I also put this line in here. This represents the 18 average of highs on the daily term time frame, and we're looking at such on the 3. So we see its support hits, which happened on New Year's Day. There's the breakout. It comes back down to it 2 days later, and then it hits this level. But there's that failed move from yesterday I was talking about. We showed in the daily where it just pulled back so aggressively. Well, it did so, correcting not only with the 18 average of highs on the daily, but the 18 average of lows on this time frame as well, holding and staying within it. And there we can see it broke out above, well, the 18 average of highs on this timestamp on the 8 o'clock on January 7th, or today, that's the date. And then furthermore, then breaking out of this time frame on this period here. And such that it's done that. After this level, to me, it looks like a bullish continuation of what's been going on for the last several weeks, with bullish being uptrend, that we should see an extension of these gains going higher. On the weekly chart, we had, there's this high from the summer, as we came down from the September lows of the previous year, the 2018 lows of about 18.25, and then the lows from this left off point, about 19.5. And back up to 25 high change, down to about 22, and now making its way up to about 24 now. But we see it breaking out above the 18 average of highs. We've seen that after the high, it corrected within this point in here and failing on the 4th, but holding and staying within this point. Once it supported this in here, which is good enough for an 18 low support, it really didn't break below it. Yeah, technically for a small amount of time and price, it did here. But obviously holding and staying above the 18 average of lows when it's all said and done, even though it resisted it this entire duration. Only one period from the entering of this to get to the top and then breaking out now. So overall, this to me looks like high correctionary mode. We can see that this level of resistance here is what it really needs to get above, which would then give you a clear direction, although you can't see it now, above the 18 average of highs. So having it go to like 24.5, 24 in that area there would be a clear breakout of this, would also be enough to get this now neutral 18 that's starting to rise, really give it a good rate of ascent like we've seen from the second half of or July to October of this year, or last year rather now. And yes, it would be a very bullish statement, I would presume. On the monthly chart, within this correctionary phase that we endured throughout the previous decade, was the resistance that it had the decade before that, in at about 18.5. It was the area that pierced below here, although the resistance it established then was 16.75. But it upgraded that resistance in the early part of 2018. 2008 fall did this, really holding and staying above the 18 average. It supports this level way big, well below it, but it doesn't go below that. And then it recuperates the 18, and there's your breaking out phase there. But that was the resistance. Here we have what has been a long amount of support, for it pierced above it until 2013. Then it hit that area a couple years later, and it did so for well more, about a half a decade plus, and still in this range. is this little resistance box now in here, which with the highs at about the 26 and change mark. So breaking above into this point, that'll put us into an interesting situation, which we can see clearly on the 3-month. Before we get to that point though, let's just look at the scenario and how amazing of a setup I think this is. And when we see this in here, leaving excitation in July and August of last year from, what was it? The market being neutral. It wasn't in much of a declining mode in here, but from the 2017 point in here, this little movement in here, we have the declining 18 average with prices pretty much staying at within the 18 average of lows and a little bit below it for the most point. And one situation where it managed to get up to the highs here in this June month of 2018. But this neutralizes the situation in here. So I talk about stage 1, band flattening it. Well, that's another way of saying neutralizing the situation, which is exactly what happened here in this point. And then breaking it above this, well, stage number 2, established resistance. That's another way of saying band starting to go up, start a new uptrend. And well, that's what the attempt obviously has been, which in turn from this high is a retest, of course, of this level here. And then from that high, this is period number 4 since this point, with the first few just doing this little sideways stuff. But after this low here, I see this exiting point. Again, another bullish setup, I think. I always talk about stuff, well, if it can hold that key area where it came from, well, the key area where it came from is pretty obvious in here. And thus, this support just happens to match this level of resistance. And, well, it's looking good so far. And I think this is, again, a very beautiful setup. And we'll finish this off within the quarterly. And then from the 2003 lows, we've had a bunch of nice support tests in here, but holding and staying within the 18. So again, the support it establishes right here. That was from the time that it broke down below the 18 lows. Did it hold and stay above this? Well, technically a little bit below here, but support, pretty monstrous, I think. Now along the way, a lot of periods have this little resistance. Obviously very neutral with the 18 pretty much going sideways now. 18 average of lows barely starting to rise. Last period, what a beautiful finish off to that quarter. After all, it did break above the highs, announcing that it's attempting to revert the trend. That's all it is, an announcement. Someone's saying, I'm going to do something here, and then you're like, okay, go ahead and do it. And now they're doing it. And then that's a productive period for what it's trying to do. What would be more productive is if it could, at least in this quarter, get up to this point in here, and then more importantly, even close any productive highs, meaning somewhere near its highs, or at least do this, come back within this period. But that would, and it's expected that that's probably going to happen as it is anyway. But when I see the low like this happen, the high like this come in, a very long correctionary phase, when you're in the early parts of the breakout, it could be interesting because you're talking about this as meh kind of resistance. Maybe you have an okay pullback, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you have key low, key high, and the amount it retraces is not that much compared to the low, then you talk about a breakout higher, especially after the consolidation period has been long in time. I think the productivity could be pretty interesting for probability odds of how fast and how big gains could be, just based on that, throwing out the side of fiat currencies and other reasons why that should go higher as well. Next up, gold. Well, monthly chart, or rather quarterly chart. From this breakout point, spectacular gain to this level. Then we support this magnificently again. There's your attempt in there. Oh, I'm going to resume, not revert, resume the uptrend. Resuming is because this corrected successfully. If it didn't succeed correctly, that means you'd have another decent leg lower, thus 18 hours would decline, and then you'd have to revert the trend after that. Another way of saying that, barely went down. Silver didn't go down much at all, but gold, it barely retraced from key low to key high. And then this correctionary phase, we can see how successful that was. Exitation occurred in January of 2019, or it's been a year ago. There's exitation of previous resistance in here. Nice continue follow through, the pause inside quarter last time, and now that's a bullish setup in itself, and we got the continuation a quarter is 3 months, and we're 1 week into we're like a quarter into the month. So we're not even 10% into this period, and off to a good start, to say the least. And let's take a look at this. Again, working back on time frames. Monthly is next. And we have this breaking it very nicely here from this previous level of resistance of 17.5. It's already gotten above the all-time highs of the all-time highs rather, of 1900. And even the setup here, it didn't hit this 18 by any means, but look at it period by period. High, and then this little red barely down, and that's a key word, barely down. And then it pauses that barely down, and then it has further pause, then further pause, and now it's breaking out from all 3 further pauses in a row. Time or price was unable to get to this level. And I can look at that as in, well, sellers never got too enthusiastic to sell at this stage, and another way of putting it, buyers didn't need that much of a decline to get back in the game. And you can also look at patiency, they wanted to get in a little earlier with a breakout period now, thus not getting a official, I like that word there, using the official term, correctionary status, because price action, the lows never did, and even never came close to touching this 18. But as it goes, you can see it's looking to break, and this thing could be just a phenomenal move if it does such, and it probably will happen, and it probably will be a phenomenal play. We'll see. Time will tell. Within the weekly chart, this major previous resistance area here of between 17 1/3 up to 17 8/9, 1733 to 1787, was a long-standing level of resistance, but we'll say 1765 or 17 2/3. And there's the breakout, June of this year, and significant move, correcting nicely with just this. And a lot of things that I'll say too is when you have a big move like this, what you're probably going to have to do is you're probably going to break below this low, fill the empty space from this low. Thus, you'd have to use a longer-term time frame to view it. But no, we had it come down to the 18 lows in here, October, break down below it here, but thus not making really any low move, just resisting this for several weeks in a row. And then this week gets to the highs. Further, next week after the previous one, attempting a breakout. And then continuation now has already managed to get up to previous high. Okay, maybe it pulls back and supports within this key area here around 1990. We'll party like it's that time frame, or party like it's 1980 rather, because that's where the 18 average of highs right now is breaking out from. And this is the spot. Oh, I don't like resistance here because I don't. And maybe that's as far down as it goes. Maybe it just grinds this area. But if it breaks it, and wouldn't be surprised if that happened, then I wouldn't be surprised if it was large moves. We're talking about like 15, 20, 30% moves in a relatively short period of time. Then viewing it on the daily, all of these lows, and you can see how support just changed. Lower highs. And then it changed in here. There's your changing of it. So a failure to break out here. Not much of a statement there, whatever, but total statement here. Succeeding on the correction. Failing on this attempt with a fast move lower. Of course, this breakout attempt obviously most certainly didn't fail. Now back up to, of course, his previous level of resistance. So for this to be a real move, I need to see this correct or not fail a 61.8% correction, which is whatever this high happens to be, currently at 2056, divided by the low, which I would probably use 1931, and then to the root of the key Fibonacci, but the 61.8 correction turns out to be to the root of 0.382, and then you multiply it by the low. Although if you use the linear scale, it would work out probably the exact same numbers because the volatility is pretty much minuscule. So the traditional ones that softwares would use would pretty much be perfect as well. And if it holds that, which is this area here, if it If it comes down here and it holds it, then that's a bullish sign, and it would be a big fail move if it doesn't. So we'll just keep waiting for time to determine such, and move on to the 3-hour. And we had this level of resistance during the Christmas holiday week, falling down to this interesting time in here, but maybe that's because of the market shutting down. That makes the most sense now with the holidays. But now we have, here's the resistance matching this. There's the breakout. When you break a key level, sometimes, definitely this time, and especially on this time, you have a fantastic move. And from the fantastic move, there's your correctionary test. Exitation happening couple periods ago. A pause with it. Continuation is now complete on it. 2 hours and 23 minutes. That's why the market's closed now at 5:36 p.m. Eastern time. But definitely a bullish setup, I think, in here on the triple hour. So that will be the gold. Let's finish this off within Bitcoin now. And let's go from the longest time frame to the shortest, starting within the monthly. As we had this high in at about 1200, correcting successfully. And then this level here coming over to 22,000. Supporting well a little over 4. Currently we're at a little over 10,000 Canadian. But more importantly, after this attempt in here, still successful. Well, I can't say that. We're still in this correctionary band. We got in here on this period, so this is period number 5 on the monthly, or month number 5. Getting above the 18 average of highs, about 14,000, but getting to this high in here, 16, 17,000, that's when it becomes noticeable that it's a breakout above. That's when the 18 average would really start to increase well, and you'd be close to the previous resistance and in a very good bullish situation, to say the least. Next time frame is the weekly. And after that big high of 22, okay, there's the low. So we didn't successfully hold this originally established area. The descending triangle, of course, faltering. One leg lower, but very much just failing big time on the bearishness correctionary phase. There's your breakout, and what a move that it had to this high. But this high is still lower than this. But until we make a lower low to this, any lows that happen to come down, right now it's here, is going to be a higher low. Thus, you'd be getting symmetricalness, yada yada on that. Until you can break that pattern, you'd be looking for trend. So with that being stated, any move that gets above in here, the 18 average of highs, is like, oh, okay, maybe it's now an attempt to get to this high. And in the breaking of this high is the attempt to end the neutralization, because then you'd be looking for an attempt to meet the previous level of resistance. With that, a clear move would be about around 12,000 or so, would be a clear move above the 18 average of highs. On the daily chart, from the highs from the, we'll call it the summer solstice highs of last year, a lot of support in here we can be seen. And then we established this little over here, resisting this area, and then another leg lower. Therefore, one here, and really one here. Within it, there was a couple though. So this is this leg lower to this leg, and then this leg lower to this one. This one leg lower, of course, represented this previous lower high, and that's what it needs to beat. Thus, it could make, in the symmetricalness, lower highs, meaning it can come up here, then make higher lows. It could do that, but with that being said, anytime you have a breakout, well, this is where it came from, where it leaves the 18. This is the upper end of this level of resistance. So therefore, we know if it breaks out, this is your must-hold area. And that's what it's looking like it's attempting to do. I'm going to ignore this double green candle thing because I'm just doing math to get this into Canadian dollars. But it is purely an attempt to break out from this, revert the trend from what was a down move after resisting it from November 29th, successfully that is, all the way to December 29th. But we can see here in the new year, this first resistance attempt on a bearish point hasn't been successful because it resisted it, but not for that much, just a couple days of going sideways and not going down much, not even close to the 18 lows. But the breakout occurred January 6th, which was yesterday. I guess, yeah, it's a new day, I guess, on this. So whatever, to me, it looks like this is ready for a decent size move higher. And so far for the year, and viewing this on the single hour, from these lows that occurred on January the 2nd, phenomenal move to this high, but we see another successful correctionary move, retested this level, but really, this entire run here is a supporting this level of resistance. has a little short-term small failed breakout, or breakdown rather, and it has a very big breakout from this point after having a long resistance point from January 5th all the way to, well, January the 6th, but a good full day of resisting this. And then on the breakout here, 7 o'clock on yesterday's session, you come up to this high, successfully correcting it through pretty much time. And before this happened, we see a nice, again, short-term failed breakdown below. And within today's session, we've managed to establish this high. Well, this little bit has came back to this level. So it's having a start of this correctionary mode. If we can see it maybe come up towards in here, maybe it's over. Maybe we need an extended time, and maybe it's a top. But the longer-term daily chart, it's showing bullish behavior there as well. So it wouldn't be surprised if it does continue to continue up forward from here. But if it doesn't hold this area, if you see it falter, then all wild cards, or everything's off, and all things are changed. And if this fails, then who knows what we could do below that. And that will conclude today's video. Thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.